I'm pleased to have with me today Representative Scott Peters, who is a Democratic candidate running for re-election for California's 52nd Congressional District. Representative Peterson has held his position in the House since he was elected in 2012, and with the 2020 elections currently underway, we're really looking for him to share a bit more information about his platform, and we're eager to gain some more insight into how he will serve members living in both his district and those in the broader San Diego community. So Representative Peters, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I just want to start off by saying I am new to the San Diego area. I'm also new to the San Diego chapter of the United Nations Association and the field of public policy and the world of politics as a whole. So I'm really looking as a voter and as a member of the community to just get a basic understanding of what voting for you would entail, what some of the benefits would be, and then what it would just mean for the rest of the San Diego community.
So thank you for the question. Thanks for having me. I've fashioned my service around connecting what's happening in Washington with what's important in San Diego, which is by distance a long ways away. I inform my service by thinking about the four economies that drive San Diego. The military accounts for about 20% of our jobs. So we are proud partners in the national defense, but we're also conscious of the economic investment that means in our region, whether it's the new training facility for the Navy SEALs that we're building, or upgrades to the Miramar Airfield, or new places to home port ships at San Diego, at Naval Base San Diego. So that's one part of it. Second is tourism. We're lucky to live in a place that people pay to visit. Right now, they're not paying to visit. And so one of the big focuses of our response to COVID has been helping out those restaurants in particular, but also the attractions and the hotels that depend on visitors to get them through this tough time so we can get back to normal. And I do believe that normal will be visiting other places once again someday, but our people are really suffering, and I'm conscious that people who work in hotels are not always the ones that have big bank accounts they can rely on for month to month to pay the expenses, so they're really hurting. The third economy is science and technology. So Qualcomm is our biggest private employer. We're big in telecommunications. But the life sciences, we're the third leading life sciences cluster in the country. So we rely on basic scientific research to solve problems at places like the Salk Institute or Scripps Research Institute or UCSD. Amazing basic scientific research that also coexists with an industry that creates therapies and cures for things. And we're also big in genomics, where the whole genome sequencing and the possibility for using new technologies to do better diagnostics, to provide better results at better prices in healthcare. That's a big part of it. And finally, the border, which is an international issue the UN would be interested in. We benefit greatly on both sides of the border from cross-border trade. And in San Diego, we understand the border is not a threat. The border is an opportunity. And you'd hear that from every chamber of commerce from El Paso to San Diego along the border. So we've been very disturbed by by some of the rhetoric we've heard about from Washington about Mexico. Mexico is our friend in San Diego. It's not just part of our economy, it's part of our culture. And we invested about $750 million in a new border crossing at San Ysidro, which is the busiest land border crossing in the Western Hemisphere, because we want to get people and goods across there safely and securely. And I think that's something that people should be proud of. Nationally, my national issue I work on is climate change, very important in San Diego, where we'll see sea level rise. We'll see more extended droughts. We've already seen more intense wildfires. I trying to work on ways to mitigate climate change and to adapt to what we know is coming. And I'm conscious that I'm in a district that is not a particularly politically polarized district. So we'll never have a Bernie Sanders Democrat or a Ted Cruz Republican representing this district. We'll have someone of either party perceived as a problem solver who can work across the aisle. I'm also conscious that this is the 10th best educated congressional district in the country out of 435. And that may surprise you until you think about who your neighbors are. They're scientists, they're doctors, they've got PhDs. It's exciting. It's an exciting district to represent, and I'm very honored to represent the 52nd District of California in the United States Congress.
Thank you. I actually wanted to use your mention of tourism suffering greatly because of the COVID pandemic to segue into my next question, which is basically 2020 has been a year of shock to us all. I mean, with an unprecedented pandemic killing hundreds of thousands, with a significant economic fallout across the US, thousands left without work and healthcare. I know you had led a series of video sessions on YouTube, actually, where you provided statements on, the state of the public health emergency, how it's being addressed by Congress. And I wanted to ask you specifically, what is the current state of the economy in San Diego as a result of the impacts of COVID-19? And can you tell me a little bit more about how some of these impacts, so loss of jobs, loss of tourism, heavier demand on housing assistance and food security, general instability, how that's being handled locally in your district, and how you think we can do a better job of perhaps managing similar issues in the future?
Right. So the economy is in a medically induced coma. And we have to deal with the medical part of it first. Issues. And that's got to be a big priority for getting testing and working on a vaccine. But on the economic side, I think that's it. We've seen across the country that there's a wealth gap, and that's been exacerbated by COVID, and that's happened here too. The military is still paying their people, so that part of the economy is stable. In technology, a lot of the technology companies are participating in figuring out the COVID problems. They're generally okay. Cross-border trade has been crimped a little bit. I think that's true, but it's the tourism industry that's been devastated. And you think about, 53% of Americans go to bed every night worrying about paying the bills. They live paycheck to paycheck. So when their head hits the pillow, they're thinking about how are they going to feed their kids the next day, and how are they going to pay the bills this week. And that's the group of people who work for hotels. That's a group of people who work in restaurants. They might live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have big savings accounts. That's why the CARES package that we did was so important, to get people relief, to do what we could to keep them on the payroll through PPP loans. But if they fell off the payroll, a supplement for unemployment, food assistance with SNAP, Medicaid assistance so that they have health care. That was all very important, and I would say very successful. We need to do another package. And even though I care very much about debt and deficits, now is not the time to turn off the faucet. We should deal with those issues, but what we want to do is keep the economy from going from this recession into a deep depression that we really can't get out of for decades. And I think the federal government is on the clock to do that. And I hope that after the election, it looks like that we get something together to help the American people.
Thank you very much for your response. So you actually mentioned the gap in income, or the gaps in income, and how it's been exacerbated by COVID. I want to use that to transition into social protection. So do you think, as of right now, that there's an adequate amount of resources being allocated to address the homeless crisis and reduce poverty in San Diego? And then with that, could you tell me a little bit more about some of your plans to provide access to resources for vulnerable populations, both in your district and then around the San Diego community?
So homelessness is a partnership among the federal government, the state government, the local governments, and the community. I'll talk a little bit about everybody's role, but then talk about the federal part of it, which I'm involved in. The local governments have to find places to put people to live. And we've had a hard time creating enough units for people to be able to afford. So there is a portion of the homeless population that is affected with severe mental illness or drug addictions. It's going to be hard for them to be housed anyway. There's a lot of people who just couldn't make those last payments. They had a job, and then they had a tough medical bill, or they had some shock happen. They didn't have enough money to pay the bills, and they lost their apartment, and now they're on the streets. San Diego has to do a better job of finding places for those people to live. A lot of that is about just creating more supply. A lot of that is about targeting resources to provide more units, like they're doing with buying hotels. That's where the state comes in. The state needs to provide some resources and some regulatory relief for that too, and they do, and the federal government. So on our side, we deal a lot with providing, we deal with some support for housing through Section 8, which is just general low-income housing vouchers that you can give to a landlord to help you get that apartment. But we also deal with veterans populations. That makes up a fairly significant part of our homeless population. The government issues something called Veteran Assisted Supportive Housing, VASH vouchers. The Trump administration tried to zero that out. We fought back against that successfully. We'd like to expand that. I have a bill to expand it from just veterans with honorable discharges to other than honorable, not dishonorable, but other than honorable discharges, because a lot of those folks are on the street and need help. We also provide tax credits to create affordable housing when the market doesn't generate that profit instead of itself. And then we can do other things, use the leverage of the federal government. I introduced a bill called Build More Housing Near Transit Act, because I want the federal government, when we give out billions of dollars to build a big trolley project or light rail project like we did with San Diego, the federal government should say to the local government, what are you going to do to put housing near this federal investment to make sure there's more ridership? Now, we didn't do that back then, but I'd like in future awards of billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, that we ask the locals to play their part in citing uses near our investments so that we get more ridership, get more cars off the road, and pay less in subsidies from the taxpayers.
So would you say that sufficient actions are being taken to draw awareness to the issue and to address it overall?
I think in San Diego, the issue of homelessness has been prominent. It's not just a moral issue, which it is, but it's also an economic issue when you're looking at tourism, and so I think that it's getting a lot of attention. I think that the city has taken some important steps, but they're resource constrained, and I think they need some help, particularly now with COVID hammering their budget. But it's also, I think, an important, prominent issue in this mayor's race, and I think it's a hard one to beat. But I think being best in class would be a good goal for San Diego. I think there's more to do. Thank
you very much. So I'd now like to transition into the issue of race and of gender equality. And I know those are issues that you've spoken on before, but I wanted to specifically ask what progress is being made to ensure that number one, equal pay, number two, equal opportunity, and then number three, equal education for women, men, and those that are disabled is accessible across communities in San Diego.
Well, we've taken some steps on the Democratic side to ensure that women get equal pay for equal work. We've also passed on the Democratic side the Equality Act that would make sure that, in California, you can't be fired because you're gay, but that's not true in every state. And it seems ridiculous to us, but you should not be fired for who you love. That's not a workplace issue. We would do that. And I think that you'll see an interest in investing more in the education of children in disadvantaged areas if the Democrats take control of the House and Senate and the presidency. I think that's going to be an important issue. One of the things that's come up with the closure of schools is the importance of childcare and getting the economy started. So schools have a very important function in and of themselves as schools, but they also provide childcare so that the parents can go out and work while the kids are at school. Now that they're home, that's getting in the way of the economic opportunity of people who can't afford to pay large amounts for childcare. So I think one of the things that you'll hear from Democrats is, and we're trying to figure out how this works, frankly, I don't think we've come up with the perfect answer yet, is how do we make sure people have access to childcare so that they can go out and do the jobs they need to do to pay the rent and feed the family?
Mm-hmm. So kind of shifting and looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, zero hunger, quality education, gender equality, and then some climate change action. Are any of these relevant to your specific district? And how do they play into the San Diego community? And do you feel any specific areas need to be emphasized? And if so, why?
Well, they're all relevant. And I think the beauty of Congress is we've got a committee system that lets each member of Congress be on a committee to deal with the issues that they feel that are important to them, they have expertise with. For me, I've been selected to be on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is a little bit of an honor. I'm the second ranking Democrat on energy and the third ranking Democrat on environment and climate change subcommittees. So I spent a lot of time on those, and those are critical issues to deal with in San Diego and nationally. But we got to reduce the rate of climate change. We've got about 10 years to put into place the actions we need to take to get to net zero carbon emissions by mid-century. California has done a wonderful job of leading the country in how to do that, but the rest of the country hasn't quite bought in yet. So we've got to spread some of those ideas and maybe take even different approaches to make progress on this as soon as possible, decarbonize all sorts of parts of the economy. The effect of climate change on San Diego is basically there's three main effects directly on us. One is sea level rise. That'll affect our ports, our military bases, a lot of real estate over time. So we've got to be ready for that. One is we know that that extended droughts will happen now because the change in rainfall patterns and the fact that the Sierras used to be the snow on the Sierras used to be our reservoir, but you can't count on that water to sit there and be ready for us. We may have to build some more storage along the state. And then we're going to see more intense wildfires. And that's a big thing that's been taking my time lately, is that, however the fire starts, whether it's a campfire or a power line, or I saw there was a gender reveal party that went wrong recently. The reason that fires burn this badly is not those things. It's the climate change. It's the way the climate has affected the growth in our forest. We're going to need to do more thinning, more prescribed burns, more management of the forest. It would be nice if we could find do a sustainable way to use that biomass for power, which I think is something we're working on. And we have to provide more resources because we have a lot of catching up to do, but fighting fires is expensive, takes a lot of people. We have a lot of heroes out there in terms of our firefighters who want to do this, but we don't have the resources to do the management and to afford enough firefighters to handle the problem. The federal government's going to have to participate in that as well.
Thank you. So, Congressman Peters, you mentioned the spread of information with specific regard to climate change, and I actually wanted to tie that into Target 12.8, which is part of the 12th Sustainable Development Goal, responsible consumption and production, which seeks to ensure that all people have relevant information and are aware of sustainable development in harmony with nature. So looking through that lens, to what extent do you feel that citizens in your district and in California are being adequately educated on issues such as global citizenship, sustainable development, climate change, and which initiatives do you support with regards to education programs to promote awareness?
I'm open to supporting whatever you think would be most useful, and I'd love to work with you on that. I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in all those areas that you mentioned. In agriculture, for instance, we don't have a lot of agriculture in my district, so it would take some educating. I think I know of one dairy in my district, but we're changing tilling procedures. Farmers want to be involved in this. They want to be contributing to this. They don't want to necessarily be told how to achieve these goals, but they want to figure that out. I'm working on a way to deal with methane from animals. So I think there's a lot of information out there, and I'd be interested in knowing what you thought would be the best way to get those out. I'm certainly supportive of the initiatives to spread the word, because it's exciting and it's also encouraging. It's good for people to know that these ideas are out there and that they're possible.
Absolutely. So as you know, we are a membership organization that relies heavily on leadership and government participation in addition to funding. And as my last question, I wanted to just ask, do you support funding of the United Nations? There's certainly been widespread discussion on the news regarding future funding by the US government, and I just wanted to know, where do you stand on funding?
I'm a very strong supporter of UN funding. Let me just say that one of the things that concerns me most about the current administration is its withdrawal from leadership in the world, whether on trade, where Barack Obama aspired to write the rules for world trade. Trump has pulled back from that. In terms of climate, we were leading in the Paris Agreement. Trump pulled us out of that. The Iran agreement, whether you liked it or not, didn't make any sense once you signed it to get out of it. Trump pulled us out of that. And threatening our relationships with NATO and the United Nations, scaring our friends. We need allies. America needs to lead. America needs to be engaged, first of all. We need to lead by example, but we need to be involved in world leadership as we always have. And that's certainly a fundamental part of that is the United Nations. So we need to fund the United Nations, not begrudgingly, but as a strategy, as part of our foreign policy strategy to promote peace and to promote economic justice in a climate-friendly way around the world. And I think I don't think you'd find many stronger supporters of that outreach than me.
Thank you so much. We actually did the math, and the total taxpayer amount would come out to be $1.86 per year
Right.
per taxpayer.
Right. We could do that.
Well, with that, I do not have any further questions for you. I just wanted to circle back and see if there was anything you may have liked me to ask, or any last comments or remarks that you might have.
Well, welcome to San Diego. I'm happy to have you here. It's a great place. I came in 1989 from the Midwest. I never thought I would live in Southern California. I thought it'd all be hippies and admirals and surfers. It turns out I like them all, but it's a lot more than that. And it's been a wonderful place to live. It's the best place to live in the world. And I hope you're enjoying it.
Thank you so much. I certainly second your sentiment.
Right.
And best of luck with the election. Thank you so much for your time, Congressman Peters.
Thank you.